Jeremiah chapter 50. And verse 1 says, "The word which Yahweh spoke concerning Babylon, the land of the Chaldeans, through Jeremiah the prophet." Got a little bit of an echo there. Judy, we got a little bit of an echo. Yeah, okay. Can you hear me? Okay. This chapter gives a vivid description of the future destruction of Babylon. It was future at that time, okay? But it's already happened. It happened within some 70 years after Jeremiah prophesied this. And the Chaldeans are the people who inhabited the nation of Babylon. Verse 2. "Declare and proclaim among the nations. Proclaim it and lift up a standard. Do not conceal it, but say, Babylon has been captured. Bel has been put to shame. Marduk has been shattered. Her images have been put to shame. Her idols have been shattered." Now the gods of Babylon will be destroyed, and Bel is another name for the god named Marduk. They're both mentioned in this verse. All the idolatry that has come out into the world started here at Babylon. Verse 3. "For a nation has come up against her out of the north. It will make her land an object of horror, and there'll be no inhabitant in it. Both man and beast have wandered off, they have gone away." Now, it was primarily the Medes with the help of the Persians who conquered Babylon. They were located northeast of Babylon at that time. You can see there in the yellow the Median Empire, and then the Chaldean Empire there in the green. They come from the north to destroy Babylon. Verse 4. "In those days and at that time, declares Yahweh, the sons of Israel will come, both they and the sons of Judah as well. They will go along weeping as they go, and it will be Yahweh their Elohim they will seek. For they will ask for the way to Zion, turning their faces in its direction. And they'll come that they may join themselves to Yahweh in an everlasting covenant that will not be forgotten." Now, after the Medes conquered Babylon, some of the people of Elohim among the Jews, they asked to return to Judah. And this is during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, when that second temple was built. Verse 6, "My people have become lost sheep. Their shepherds have led them astray. They made them turn aside on the mountains. They've gone along from mountain to hill and have forgotten their resting place." Now, the Jewish people have become lost sheep because of false shepherds. They're no longer following the Torah of Elohim. The time came some 550 years later that Elohim sent Yeshua, the good shepherd, to once again teach his people his Torah and lead them on the path of righteousness. In John 10, starting at verse 11, Yeshua said, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He was a hireling and not a shepherd, who is not the owner of the sheep, beholds the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees, and the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he's a hireling and is not concerned about the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and I know my own, and my own know me. Even as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And I have other sheep which are not of this fold. I must bring them also, and they shall hear my voice, and they shall become one flock and one shepherd." Well, that's the lost sheep of the house of Israel, which is among the nations. Yeah. Yeah, they were dispersed. Matthew 15, verse 24, "But he answered and said, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." So this is a passage that is it's very telling, actually. You know, the shepherd and sheep scenario that is in Scripture. It's in Jeremiah, it's in Isaiah, it's in Ezekiel, and it's in all the Gospels. And he says here, the only people he was sent to were the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He wasn't sent to a Gentile group. He wasn't sent for anybody else. He was just sent for Israel. That's all. That's why we say, what group do we belong to? Well, the house of Israel. Okay? That's his people. And they're the only ones that are his people. Verse 7 of Jeremiah 50. All who have come upon them have devoured them, and their adversaries have said, we're not guilty, inasmuch as they've sinned against Yahweh, who's the habitation of righteousness, even Yahweh, the hope of their fathers. Wander away from the midst of Babylon and go forth from the land of the Chaldeans. Be also like male goats at the head of the flock. For behold, I'm going to arouse and bring up against Babylon a horde of great nations from the land of the north. And they'll draw up their battle lines against her. From there she'll be taken captive. Their arrows will be like an expert warrior who does not return empty-handed. So Elohim tells those that are his to wander away from the center of Babylon, because that's where the destruction is going to mainly take place. Elohim says he'll raise against Babylon a horde of great nations from the land of the north. Now the army of Cyrus the Great, it was composed of the Medes, the Persians, the Armenians, the Cadousians, Sais, and others who were arranged by the Medes, and they attacked from the north. And do you know how they got into Babylon? See, Babylon, the city of Babylon, it had a big kingdom, but the real city of Babylon, where the throne was and where 1 million people stayed, it was a big walled city. And the walls were huge. The walls were some 300 foot tall. And the walls were so thick at the top you could ride 2 chariots side by side all the way around the city. So how the heck were the Medes going to get in there to defeat them? How were they going to do that? You see, they had a lot of things going for them in that city. They even had a canal off the river that ran water through the city, so they didn't have to leave the city to get water. But that's how they got in. They blocked off that canal. The Medes and the Persians did. They blocked off that canal, and it was at night, and they just ran through that hole where the canal came through, and the guards didn't even know they got through. They were in the middle of Babylon before the guards even knew they were in there. It's kind of detailed in the book of Daniel. It's very interesting. Remember the handwriting on the wall? Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin, and it's written on there. What does that mean? And Daniel looked at it and said, oh, not good. Not good for you. Verse 10, and Chaldea will become plunder. All who plunder her will have enough, declares Yahweh. Now, the Babylonians plundered when they conquered. They just plundered everybody. Now those who plunder Babylon will get all they want. Verses 11 and 12, because you are glad, because you're jubilant, O you who pillage my heritage, because you skip about like a threshing heifer and neigh like stallions. Your mother will be greatly ashamed. She who gave you birth will be humiliated. Behold, she'll be the least of the nations, a wilderness, a parched land, in a desert. See, Babylon was jubilant in their pillaging and their destruction. They thought this was great. Because of this, they'll become the least of the nations. Babylon never, ever again rose to the great heights in any way, shape, or form. Kind of like modern-day Iraq, it's a country that's filled with poverty and oppression and confusion now. It's just in utter confusion. Who's leading the country of Iraq now? Do you have any idea? I don't think anybody does. ISIS, kind of, sort of. Verse 13, because of the indignation of Yahweh, she will not be inhabited, but she'll be completely desolate. Everyone who passes by Babylon will be horrified and will hiss because of all her wounds. Draw up your battle lines against Babylon on every side. All you who bend the bow, shoot at her. Do not be sparing with your arrows, for she has sinned against Yahweh. Raise your battle cry against her on every side. She's given herself up. Her pillars have fallen. Her walls have been torn down. For this is the vengeance of Yahweh. Take vengeance on her as she has done to others, so do to her. So Elohim gets vengeance on Babylon. And as Babylon did to others, that's what's going to happen to them. This is the consistent theme in Scripture. It's a consistent theme in life. As you do to others, that will be done to you. Whether or not someone believes they should follow the Torah or not, the laws and principles, that are written therein, they will still apply. In Job 4, verse 8, we read, according to what I have seen, those who plow iniquity and those who sow trouble, harvest it. Verse 16, cut off the sower from Babylon, and the one who wields the sickle at the time of the harvest. From before the sword of the oppressor, they'll each turn his back to his own people. They'll each flee to his own land. Israel is a scattered flock. The lions have driven them away. The first one who devoured him was the king of Assyria. And this last one who has broken his bones is Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Therefore thus says the Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, behold, I'm going to punish the king of Babylon and his land, just as I punished the king of Assyria. Now, you see, Assyria defeated the northern kingdom of Israel at this time. They'd already done it, and Israel was already captive and scattered. But Assyria attacked Judah also. And they got through to Judah. They destroyed a bunch of the cities there, and they surrounded Jerusalem. Okay? And Jerusalem was done for. Then something happened. Anybody remember? Something happened. Assyria, they surrounded Jerusalem. They surrounded them. And the next morning, 185,000 of them were dead. Yep. See, I'm going to punish the king of Babylon and his land just as I punished the king of Assyria. Assyria was eventually destroyed by Babylon at about 626 BC. Verses 19 and 20, and I shall bring Israel back to his pasture, and he'll graze on Carmel and Bashan, and his desire will be satisfied in the hill country of Ephraim and Gilead. In those days and at that time, declares Yahweh, search will be made for the iniquity of Israel, for there will be none, for the sins of Judah, but they'll not be found. For I shall pardon those whom I leave as a remnant. Israel, they're going to be brought back to their land. He's going to forgive their iniquity and pardon those that he's chosen to leave as a remnant. And the same principle could be applied to those occupying that land today. Even if they don't yet perceive Yeshua as Messiah, they appear to be the remnant that Elohim has forgiven, pardoned, and chosen. Verse 21. Against the land of Merathaim, go up against it, and against the inhabitants of Bekod, slay and utterly destroy them, declares Yahweh, and I'll do according to all that I have commanded you. Merathaim, that's another name for the Babylonians. And Bekod, that was in southeast Babylon. Verse 22. The noise of battle is in the land and great destruction. How the hammer of the whole earth has been cut off and broken. How Babylon has become an object of horror among the nations. I set a snare for you, and you were also caught, O Babylon. While you yourself were not aware, you have been found and also seized because you have engaged in conflict with Yahweh. Yahweh has opened his armory and has brought forth the weapons of his indignation. For it is a work of Adonai Yahweh of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans. Now Babylon is referred to as the hammer of the whole earth. And it's now going to be cut off. It's going to be destroyed. Verse 26, come to her from the farthest border, open up her barns, pile her up like heaps and utterly destroy her. Let nothing be left to her. Put all her young bulls to the sword. Let them go down to the slaughter. Woe be upon them, for the day has come, the time of their punishment. There is a sound of fugitives and refugees from the land of Babylon to declare in Zion the vengeance of Yahweh our Elohim, vengeance for his temple. Well, Babylon will become the country with fugitives and refugees. Verse 29, summon many against Babylon. All those who bend the bow and camp against her on every side, let there be no escape. Repay her according to her work, according to all that she's done, so do to her. For she's become arrogant against Yahweh, against the Holy One of Israel. Therefore her young men will fall in the streets, and all her men of war will be silenced in that day, declares Yahweh. Behold, I'm against you, O arrogant one, declares Adonai Yahweh of hosts. For your day has come, the time when I shall punish you. So he says their day is coming really soon. She's going to be repaid for all her work. See, that's what's going to happen with Islam. 1,400 years of savagery against everybody else. See, there's going to be repayment on that. And that's why so many of the scriptures talk about that day that's coming. Yeah. This is kind of like what a sequel of what it's going to be like. Yes. That's exactly right. And the comparisons are made with Babylon, too.
As you read this, so in my mind, I'm thinking it's against Satan. It's against the other gods.
It is.
In the world, you know.
It's against Satan, against the other gods in the world. What do you think it is with Islam? It's the same thing. That's exactly what it is. What's that? Yeah. Yeah. Different players, that's right. And I'm going to show you more on that, as a matter of fact. Verse 32. And the arrogant one will stumble and fall with no one to raise him up. Thou shalt set fire to his cities, it will devour all his environs. Thus says the Yahweh of hosts, the sons of Israel are oppressed, and the sons of Judah as well. And all who took them captive have held them fast, for they've refused to let them go. Their Redeemer is strong, the Yahweh of hosts is his name. He will vigorously plead their case, and he may bring rest to the earth, but turmoil to the inhabitants of Babylon. Elohim is going to destroy Babylon because they will not let the people of Judah back and let them go at the time that is appointed for them to do so. He's going to place a people in Babylon that will allow them to leave, and that's the Medes and the Persians. Matter of fact, 150 years earlier than what we're reading here, the book of Isaiah even names the king of the Persians who releases them, names him as Cyrus.
He was prophesied about it.
Prophesied in Isaiah.
Yeah.
150 years before what we're reading here.
Yeah. I thought that was phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Verse 35, a sword against the Chaldeans declares Yahweh, and against the inhabitants of Babylon, and against their officials and their wise men. A sword against the oracle priests, and they'll become fools. A sword against their mighty men, and they'll be shattered. A sword against their horses and against their chariots, and against all the foreigners who are in the midst of her, and they will become women. A sword against her treasures, and they'll be plundered. Babylon is going to suffer in the same way their victims suffered. Okay? They terrorized the people that they plundered and killed and took captive. Well, now that's exactly what's going to happen to them. Verses 38 and 39, a drought on her waters, and they'll be dried up. For it is a land of idols, and they're mad over fearsome idols. Therefore the desert creatures will live there along with the jackals. The ostriches also will live in it. And it will never again be inhabited or dwelt in from generation to generation. Okay, the time will come that land, the city of Babylon, by the way, was never inhabited again. Remember, Saddam Hussein tried to rebuild the walls of Babylon. Okay, as a matter of fact, he did. But you know what? The place is still a desolation. There's nothing there. Ostriches, jackals. Yep, that's it. That's it. The place was wasted. Never again inhabited. I remember I had made that comment on a different teaching, I don't remember what it was, but I referred to this, and there was a good Christian boy that was criticizing me. He said, don't tell me Babylon, the city Babylon, was never again inhabited. It was too, and he showed a picture of one of our soldiers standing by the wall in Babylon, and I thought, oh, good grief. Give me a break. He said, no, when he said it'd never be inhabited, that means a man will never step over there again. Oh, my aching back. I'd let him go. Okay. I said, okay. Verse 40. As when Elohim overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah with its neighbors, declares Yahweh, no man will live there, nor will any son of man reside in it. Behold, a people is coming from the north, and a great nation, and many kings will be aroused from the remote parts of the earth. They'll seize their bow and javelin. They're cruel and have no mercy. Their voice roars like the sea, and they ride on horses, marshaled like a man for the battle against you, O daughter of Babylon. Babylon is going to be like Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah got fried. The Medes and the Persians will be merciless. Verse 43, the king of Babylon has heard the report about them, and his hands hang limp. Distress has gripped him, agony like a woman in childbirth. Behold, one will come up like a lion from the thicket of the Jordan to a perennially watered pasture. For in an instant I shall make them run away from it, and whoever is chosen I shall appoint over it. For who is like me, and who will summon me into court? And who then is the shepherd who can stand before me? So they're going to suffer the judgment of Elohim. And the judgment of Elohim, it's sure and it's true. Verse 45, therefore hear the plan of Yahweh, which he has planned against Babylon, and his purposes, which he has purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely they will drag them off, even the little ones of the flock. Surely he will make their pasture desolate because of them. At the shout, Babylon has been seized, the earth is shaken, and an outcry is heard among the nations. So the whole world's going to know about the fall of Babylon. The whole world's going to know about this. It's important to them too. Let's look at chapter 51. And that's not brought forth correctly. See if I can fix this real quick. I think I can. There it is. Chapter 51, verse 1, thus says Yahweh, behold, I'm going to arouse against Babylon and against the inhabitants of Leb Kamai, the spirit of a destroyer. The term Leb Kamai, it's a cryptic term. It's referring to Babylon. Now in chapter 48, Elohim used the term destroyer to refer to the Babylonians and their power to be used as an instrument of destruction that Elohim would use. And the Hebrew term is slightly different, but the meaning is the same, describing the Medo-Persian Empire who destroys Babylon. And so we know what the destroyer is. In Revelation, for instance, it uses the terms Abaddon and Apollyon. Okay, and they're going to be the ones leading the in the last days. Well, Abaddon and Apollyon just mean destroyer. Okay, and they're just what that means. It doesn't mean like a ghost or a spiritual entity necessarily, but the destroyer here is the Medes and the Persians. The destroyer in chapter 48 was the Babylonians. So a destroyer is just a nation that's going to be used in judgment. Verse 2, I shall dispatch foreigners to Babylon, that they may winnow her and may devastate her land. For on every side they'll be opposed to her in the day of her calamity. Let not him who bends his bow bend it, nor let him rise up in his scale armor. So do not spare her young men, devote all her army to destruction. And they'll fall down slain in the land of the Chaldeans and pierced through in their streets. Okay, it says here, really what it's saying, they're going to be caught by surprise. Caught by surprise. Let him who bends his bow, let not him who bends his bow bend it, nor let him rise up in his scale armor. They're not even going to have time to grab their bow and arrow. They're going to be asleep or drunk. And that's exactly what happened. They had a big party going on in Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar's grandson gets out the implements from the temple that they stole out of Jerusalem. And he gets out and starts playing with them, drinking out of them, getting drunk out of them. And that's where that hand appears and writes on the wall. And it says his knees knocked. Have you watched those old Mike Tyson fights from the late 80s and the 90s? When the guy's knees just go, and then that's what happened to him. You know, History records that the Median general, his name was Gabrias. Like I said, he was in the middle of the city before the guards on the walls even saw him. And it was too late then. Verse 5 of Jeremiah 51, neither Israel nor Judah has been forsaken by his Elohim, the Yahweh of hosts, although their land is full of guilt before the Holy One of Israel. Notice that neither Judah nor Israel has been forsaken by Elohim. They're full of guilt, but Elohim has not discarded his chosen people. Verse 6, flee from the midst of Babylon, and each of you save his life. Do not be destroyed in her punishment, for this is Yahweh's time of vengeance. He's going to render recompense to her. So he says, don't stay in the middle of the city. All right, that's where the destruction is going to be the worst. That's where the big defeat of Babylon took place. Stay on the outskirts of the kingdom. That's where they're told to stay. Verse 7. Babylon has been a golden cup in the hand of Yahweh, intoxicating all the earth. The nations have drunk of her wine, therefore the nations are going mad. The golden cup by which Babylon has intoxicated the whole earth is her idolatry. In this chapter later on, in verses 47 and 48, we read, therefore, behold, days are coming when I shall punish the idols of Babylon, and her whole land will be put to shame, and all her slain will fall in her midst. Then heaven and earth and all that is in them will shout for joy over Babylon, for the destroyers will come to her from the north, declares Yahweh. Well, this idolatry of Babylon has been embraced by the world, and consequently, they're going mad. Now, the description of the whore of Babylon in Revelation is strikingly similar. Revelation 17, verses 4 and 5. And the woman was clothed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a gold cup full of abominations and of the unclean things of her immorality. And upon her forehead a name was written, a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. Now, as with this description being Babylon, this reference in Revelation is describing the Holy Roman Empire of the Crusades. This is the Byzantine Empire being described here. They were soundly defeated by the Muslim Empire about 800 years ago. But as with the idolatry of Babylon, the corrupt religious system lives on. See, and they were governed by the Catholic Church. And that's the cup full of abominations and the unclean things of her immorality. They made deals with the kings, if you read about that in that chapter. You either follow along with the Holy Roman Empire, and the Pope and the kings got into battles over this. The Pope would say, you all do what I say, or I'll excommunicate your whole country. So they made deals. And that was an empire that was run by the church itself. And it says in Revelation 17 and 18 that the whore is devoured by the beast. And that's exactly what happened. They also give you a time frame in there, too. It says it happens in 1 year. 364.868 days, which are years. And you convert them to solar years. It goes from the time of the beginning of the very first crusade until after the destruction of Constantinople, which became Istanbul. So, it's amazing. And both the whore of Babylon and the beast occupied that land of Israel during that time. The Byzantine Empire conquered Jerusalem for 88 years, which is why they're in the book of the Revelation. That's what the book's all about. It's about the land of Israel from the time of the Apostle John until the time of the return of Messiah. Talks about the Roman Empire. Talks about the Holy Roman Empire. Talks about the Islamic Empire. And gives us their beginnings and their ends. Jeremiah 51, verses 8 and 9. Suddenly Babylon has fallen and been broken. Wail over her. Bring balm for her pain. Perhaps she may be healed. We applied healing to Babylon, but she was not healed. Forsake her and let us each go to his own country, for her judgment has reached to heaven and towers up to the very skies. So Babylon, when it falls, there's going to be no healing Babylon. Verses 10 and 11, Yahweh has brought about our vindication. Come and let us recount in Zion the work of Yahweh our Elohim. Sharpen the arrows, fill the quivers. Yahweh has aroused the spirit of the kings of the Medes, because his purpose is against Babylon to destroy it. For it is the vengeance of Yahweh, vengeance for his temple. Now that's interesting. Elohim is going to destroy Babylon because of vengeance for his temple. The Babylonians destroyed his temple. They stole the holy items used therein. And now this is the vengeance of Elohim. In the same way, the Mosque of Omar is in the place where the temple was. Elohim will have vengeance in that case also. He doesn't take that place very lightly, okay? That place where that mosque is right now, he says in Scripture, in several places, that place is where I place my name, okay? And who sat there? That's Satan himself. He's taken that seat. And he's been there for 1,400 years.
That's what got him excommunicated from heaven.
Yes, it is. Well, so he could get things started down here.
He don't have very far to fall now, though.
No, he sure doesn't. That's correct. Verse 12, lift up a signal against the walls of Babylon. Post a strong guard. Station sentries. Place men in ambush. For Yahweh has both purposed and performed what he spoke concerning the inhabitants of Babylon. O you who dwell by many waters, abundant in treasures, your end is come. The measure of your end. The Yahweh of hosts has sworn by himself, surely I will fill you with a population like locusts, and they'll cry out with shouts of victory over you. The population which will destroy Babylon will be like locusts. Babylon will be powerless against them. So if you see in prophecy, say in Revelation, it speaks of locusts. What's that referring to? It's an invading army. Okay? See, Jeremiah is a pretty literal book of pre-written history. Okay? And then history in it. But still, when it uses symbolism, we know what it means. We can figure it out. Therefore, when we go to a symbolic book on prophecy, and it says the same thing, go to the book of Jeremiah, where that symbolism is used, and it's a much more literal book, and you can figure out what it means there.
And locusts eat everything.
And it what?
Locusts eat everything.
Yeah, locusts eat everything. That's right. Yeah, and they're kosher. You can eat them. Verse 15. It's he who made the earth by his power, who established the world by his wisdom, and by his understanding he stretched out the heavens. When he utters his voice, there is a tumult of waters in the heavens. And he causes the clouds to ascend from the end of the earth. He makes lightning for the rain and brings forth the wind from his storehouses. All mankind is stupid, devoid of knowledge. Every goldsmith is put to shame by his idols, for his molten images are deceitful, and there's no breath in them. All mankind is stupid. You know, things haven't changed much, have they?
No.
It just hasn't changed much at all. Verse 18, they're worthless, a work of mockery. In the time of their punishment, they'll perish. The portion of Jacob is not like these, for the maker of all is he, and of the tribe of his inheritance, the Yahweh of hosts is his name. He says, you are my war club, my weapon of war. And with you I shatter nations, and with you I destroy kingdoms, and with you I shatter the horse and his rider. So even though Babylon was a nation of idolatry, Elohim used them as a war club, which is fascinating. He talked about my servant Nebuchadnezzar. You know, he has purposes for these, all right? And he'll use them. And I've told you before, the book of Habakkuk, it's the whole thing is about, really the account that he writes about is, why are you going to use Babylon to destroy Judah and Jerusalem? They're worse than we are. My gosh, they kill babies. They kill everybody. And who they don't kill, they enslave and castrate and do all kinds of bad things too. They're worse than us. Why are you going to use them? And his answer to Habakkuk, or Habakkuk, how it's supposed to be pronounced, is don't worry about it. I'll take care of them. A little bit later, I'll take care of them. There, now you feel better? But in the meantime, they're going to do to you what they've done to everybody else, because you all turned your back on my ways. Verse 22, and with you I shatter the chariot and its riders, and with you I shatter man and woman. With you I shatter old man and youth. With you I shatter young man and virgin. With you I shatter the shepherd and his flock. With you I shatter the farmer and his team. With you I shatter the governors and prefects. But I will repay Babylon and all the inhabitants of Chaldea for all their evil that they've done in Zion before your eyes, declares Yahweh. So he's going to repay them for the evil they've done in Zion. That's the same judgment that's going to occur against the Muslim Empire, for all the evil you've done in Zion. Verse 25. Behold, I'm against you, O destroying mountain, who destroys the whole earth, declares Yahweh. I'll stretch out my hand against you and roll you down from the crags. I'll make you a burnt-out mountain. And they will not take from you even a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations. But you will be desolate forever, declares Yahweh. Okay, a burnt-out mountain. That is Babylon. That's the symbol used for Babylon, a burnt-out mountain. A destroying mountain, it says at the beginning of verse 25, who destroys the whole earth. Well, let's look back in Revelation. In Revelation chapter 8, verses 8 and 9. And the second angel sounded with something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. Okay? So it's a burning mountain. What is that? Okay, it's a kingdom. It's a kingdom that'll conquer. Sound fair enough? Thrown into the sea. What's the sea represent? All the people of the earth. So this big conquering empire is going to come on the scene and conquer the people, and a third of the sea become blood. And the third of the creatures which are in the sea and had life died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. That's the Roman Empire, by the way, what it's talking about. Verses 27 and 28. Oh, and 29. Lift up a signal in the land, blow a trumpet among the nations. Consecrate the nations against her. Summon against her the kingdoms of Ararat, Mene, and Ashkenaz. Appoint a marshal against her. Bring up the horses like bristly locusts. Consecrate the nations against her, the kings of the Medes, their governors, and all their prefects, in every land of their dominion. So the land quakes and writhes. For the purposes of Yahweh against Babylon, stand to make the land of Babylon a desolation without inhabitants. Once again here it uses locusts as a descriptor of the army who's going to destroy Babylon. And like I said, they use the same in Revelation. It's an invading army is what that's referring to. Verse 30. The mighty men of Babylon have ceased fighting. They stay in the strongholds. Their strength is exhausted. They're becoming like women. Their dwelling places are set on fire. The bars of her gates are broken. They're going to become like women. Okay, what's that mean? Weak. Going to be weak. You know, it's a description of the locust army in the last days who attacked the Muslim Empire, by the way, but won't kill them. In Revelation 9, which is the Roman Empire again, verses 7 and 8, and the appearance of the locusts was like horses prepared for battle. See, the locusts, it's just an invading army. It's not helicopters. I hear all kinds of things. The whirring of the wings. No. And on their heads, as it were, crowns like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men, and they had hair like the hair of women, and their teeth were like the teeth of lions. And by the way, the teeth of lions, it talks about how the young lions break their teeth when they're young. And that's what it's referring to here. Hair like women, they're weak. Their bite is broken teeth. They don't destroy Islam. But what we did, they colonized it. This is all about the European colonization. The first half of chapter 9 is. And it gives a time frame, 152 years. And we started at about 1838, or Europe did, colonizing Africa in the Middle East, about 1838, and it didn't end until 1990. 152 years. That's the time frame that Scripture gave. And it's hard to say when it started, but that's when they went down and started mapping everything. Verses 31 and 32 of Jeremiah 51. And this, we may just stop here. One courier runs to meet another, and one messenger to meet another, to tell the king of Babylon that his city has been captured from end to end. The fords also have been seized, and they've burned the marshes with fire, and the men of war are terrified. The couriers from the city cannot get to the king fast enough to tell him that the whole city's been captured. That's how quick it was. The passageways, the fords have been seized. Even the marshes are on fire. They're done. Okay?